Emma, look, this is news that we were anticipating, the possibility of this coming down and this all happening again today.
Yeah, joining us right now on the phone to talk about this breaking news is criminal defense attorney Jim Bergen. Jim, thanks for joining us here.
Jim.
Can you hear us?
Glad to. Very interesting, that's for sure.
It is. So tell us what this means if a grand jury votes to indict him. What are the implications of that?
Well, that just means that they've heard enough evidence. They independently voted that there is probable cause to believe that this crime happened. Then it goes into the hands of the prosecutor. The prosecutor in this instance, and in almost most white collars, they end up dealing with the defense attorneys to arrange for what's the right way to do it. And there still are some basic things that will happen. He's going to have to come. He's going to get fingerprinted, photographed. But I'm not sure they're going to go through that ritual of handcuffing. Usually that's done, but with something like this, the idea of handcuffing is really unnecessary. It does remind me that decades ago, when Giuliani was the prosecutor, he insisted on arranging for handcuffing for the white-collar cases, many of which, weren't like black and white cases. And most of us who do defense work saw that as really a violation of the principle of innocent until proven guilty. So here, I don't think they're going to go through that. In fact, it would seem to me that the defendant in this particular case might sort of get off on the fact that he's cuffed and treated this way by these crazy liberal Democrats, the way he's looking at it. But the routine is you just get told of the offense, you have to come in, you get your warning. And now the one tricky thing is almost everyone, like 99% of people, just get extradited or just come on his own. It's going to be a mess because then DeSantis has actually got to get him to come. But I just don't see that happening. He'll be coming, and he'll be getting out. And then then it's all about confirmation bias, frankly. Most of the people who are watching this right now have an opinion. Now, the law is pretty straightforward. You look at the facts, you apply the law, and this is not strange a case. Go
Jim,
ahead,
what exactly would the charges be for this hush money payment?
Yeah, what's he looking at?
Yeah, well, honestly, since that has not yet come out, it would be not responsible for me to just say more than what everybody's been reading about that's been coming out. But I haven't seen the actual charges. They seem, by virtue of who's been coming in and leaving, to be focused on the payment for the porn star, and that they've got all the phone calls from Cohen, and Cohen's pled out to it. And then it's going to come down to them attacking Cohen's credibility. But there is not much doubt that there is probable cause that when you pay somebody right at this time in this amount, and then you call it legal work, when it's not legal work, that's a crime.
Jim, here's a question. I mean, obviously, so much of this is unprecedented, right? A former president being indicted on criminal charges. What happens now? We're in the midst of, him looking at a run for re-election here. Can someone who's, I don't even know if you know the answers to this, but can someone who's indicted run for president? Can they be a candidate for president? Can they be a nominee? If they are incarcerated, can you still run for president? The legal barriers to run for president, what is it? A certain amount of years of being a citizen and then being a certain amount of years old. It's very, very basic.
That's it.
That's it, right?
Right, you'd have to be.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Well, but here's what it comes down to. It is a robust democracy. It's a robust democracy that has limitations, but those limitations are precise. And if there is no limit, then you're free. So if we want to choose to elect a criminal as a president, he's going to be our president.
I know there was that recent Quinnipiac poll that was talking about if Trump was indicted, and I think it was over 50% of people that were polled said that they did not think that he should run for president if he was going to be indicted. So the information that we're getting right now is that the president is in Mar-a-Lago. He's taking in this information, and I know our producers are working really hard back there. I'll be curious if some of the live cameras pop up, people on watch at Mar-a-Lago or maybe at Trump Towers in New York City. If we get some of those images, we will certainly bring them to you. But Jim, just talk about the impact of this, because former President Trump would be the first president in our history to face criminal charges. And that's wild.
Well, Well, the answer to that is in the eye of the beholder. The first thing you did is you cite a poll. There really is no informed answer by an experienced criminal defense attorney that really matters to, your question is, well, what are the implications sort of to our country? Well, that's up to the voters to decide. And everybody who's got an opinion is going to express themselves vigorously. As far as the criminal case is concerned, the prosecutor just looks at the evidence and then presents it, tries to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. You do have to have a unanimous verdict, and so jury selection will be very important. But I believe that based on the evidence I've seen, if the jurors uphold their oath to follow the facts and follow the law, there's a serious risk of a conviction. But if he's convicted, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get a prison term. I think other than what some people believe is a life of crime, he has a life of no crime, right? He doesn't have any prior convictions. So, and there's no physical violence. In fact, here's an interesting piece of law. In New York, they're not even allowed to impose bond. In other words, he's going to go out on his own recognizance, meaning I recognize my obligations and I will come. In other words, a promise to appear. I'm not concerned that he's ultimately going to go to jail, but I am concerned that this trial could take place well before the election.
Interesting.
And it's just getting started.
Yeah. Jim Berg.